Sagittarius, your grandfather in heaven has an urgent warning. Sagittarius, there are moments when the veil between this world and the next feels thin, when whispers from those who have crossed over brush against your spirit like wind on a quiet night. Today the message comes from your grandfather in heaven. Urgent, insistent, and filled with love. His words are not meant to frighten you but to awaken you. He sees what you cannot, he understands what you do not, and he speaks now because time matters. When we lose someone we love, especially a figure as guiding and protective as a grandfather, we often believe their role in our life ends with their passing. Yet the truth is far deeper. Their spirit remains watching, guiding, warning, and blessing us. Sometimes that guidance arrives gently in dreams or symbols. Other times, as now, it arrives as a call you cannot ignore. Sagittarius, your grandfather's urgent warning is about choices you are making, paths you are considering, and energies around you that could either uplift or endanger your journey. This message is about alignment, about destiny, about protecting what truly matters. The stars affirm that his words reach you for a reason. You are at a crossroads, and the next step you take could shape not just your life but the lives of those connected to you. If you feel the pull of this message, open your heart fully. Like, share, and subscribe so that together, we can walk this sacred path of wisdom and healing. Gate 1: The voice of ancestral wisdom. Sagittarius, when a grandfather speaks from the other side, it is never without purpose. The voice of a grandfather is not merely the echo of the past. It is the embodiment of ancestral wisdom, carried through blood, memory, and spirit. His urgent warning is more than a message. It is a bridge between generations, a call from heaven to pay attention to the patterns unfolding in your life. You may not realize how much of your present is shaped by those who walked before you. Grandfathers, in particular, often represent both strength and guidance. Even if your relationship with him was complicated, his soul still carries an awareness of your destiny that transcends earthly misunderstandings. From his vantage point in the spiritual realm, he sees the traps, the shadows, and the detours that you may not yet notice. And because he loves you, he cannot remain silent. His warning is urgent because the moment before you is urgent. In many cultures, ancestors are regarded as guardians who watch over the living. In African traditions, they are called the living dead. For though they are gone from sight, they remain alive in influence. In Native American teachings, the voice of the grandfather is the voice of the elder, reminding us to honor truth and walk in balance with all of life. And in many families, personal stories abound of dreams, sudden thoughts, or signs, like a familiar scent or a bird appearing at the window, that are believed to be messages from those who have passed. Sagittarius, if you have noticed such signs lately, it is not coincidence. It is confirmation. So what is the heart of this warning? It begins with distraction. Your grandfather sees how easily your fiery spirit can become scattered, chasing horizons without grounding. While adventure and freedom are your gifts, they can also leave you vulnerable to losing focus on what truly matters: your health, your relationships, your spiritual alignment. His warning is simple but profound. Do not allow busyness or restless seeking to pull you from your foundation. The crossroads you face requires clarity, not confusion. Think of the farmer who plants too many seeds without tending them. None grow strong because his energy is divided. Your grandfather urges you, choose wisely. Stop scattering yourself into too many directions. The warning is that if you continue without grounding, you risk exhaustion, regret, or missed opportunities that destiny has been placing before you. He sees how easily distractions can lead you off course, and he calls you back to center. Another layer of his warning concerns the people around you. Sagittarius, your heart is generous, but sometimes you misjudge character. You believe others are as open and well-meaning as you are, but not all carry the same light. Your grandfather sees the masks that others wear, the hidden intentions behind certain smiles. His message is clear: be discerning. Do not give your trust too quickly in the weeks ahead. Someone near you may not be who they claim to be, and their influence could pull you into unnecessary pain. He warns you not to ignore your intuition. If something feels off, it probably is. But this is not a message of fear. It is one of empowerment. Warnings are gifts when we heed them. To know in advance that distraction and misplaced trust are dangers is to be given the chance to choose differently. Your grandfather's love is in the urgency of his words. He does not want to see you repeat mistakes that others in your family line have already endured. He reminds you that your lineage carries patterns, cycles of hardship, betrayal, or avoidance, that you have the power to break. You, Sagittarius, are the one who can turn the tide. Let's ground this in a real example. A woman once told the story of how her grandfather appeared in her dream, warning her not to sign a certain business deal. At first, she dismissed it as imagination. But the next day, when she looked closer at the contract, she discovered hidden clauses that would have trapped her in financial ruin. She later said, "That dream saved me." Sagittarius, you may not dream the same dream, but the principle is the same. Your grandfather's warning is heaven's way of protecting you from an unseen snare. He also warns against neglecting your health. Freedom-loving as you are, you sometimes treat your body as though it can keep up with endless demands. But your grandfather whispers, slow down. Care for yourself. No destiny can be fulfilled if the vessel carrying it collapses. You may brush aside small symptoms, but he sees the bigger picture. His warning carries urgency here. Listen to your body now before it forces you to listen later. Lastly, his words point to your spiritual alignment. Sagittarius, your gift is vision, but vision without grounding becomes fantasy. Your grandfather urges you to return to practices that connect you to the divine. Prayer, meditation, quiet reflection, time in nature. These are not luxuries, they are necessities. They will anchor you when the bombshells of life hit. They will guide you when choices feel overwhelming. And they will protect you from influences that do not belong in your path. The urgent warning is not that danger is inevitable. It is that destiny requires awareness. Your grandfather in heaven has seen enough to know where certain roads lead. His message is not, be afraid. His message is, wake up, be wise, choose with clarity. The love in his voice is fierce because the stakes are high. He knows your potential, he knows your fire, and he knows how easily you can burn yourself out if you forget to ground that fire in truth. So listen, Sagittarius. Hear him. Do not dismiss the signs, the dreams, or the inner nudges. His warning is your protection, his voice your guide. And if you honor his words, you will not only avoid unnecessary pain, you will step more fully into the destiny that both the stars and your ancestors have always prepared for you. Gate 2: the cycles of family and the weight of ancestral patterns. Sagittarius, when your grandfather sends an urgent warning from the other side, it is not only about your present, it is about the larger cycles that run through your family line. You are not just an individual walking your path. You are also the carrier of ancestral energy, the one who inherits both blessings and burdens. What you face today has roots in stories that began long before you were born. This is why his message comes with urgency, because he sees how easily old cycles could repeat, and he calls you now to break them. Every family carries patterns. Some are beautiful: resilience, kindness, generosity. Others are destructive: silence, betrayal, addiction, or fear. These patterns pass through generations like rivers carving valleys. Often we repeat them unconsciously, mistaking them for our own choices when in fact they are echoes of stories lived by those before us. Your grandfather, now freed from earthly limitations, sees the web of these patterns clearly. And what he shows you is this. You, Sagittarius, are the one chosen to interrupt the cycles that harm and to strengthen the cycles that heal. Think about your grandfather's own life. Perhaps he lived through struggles he never spoke of. Wars, poverty, personal regrets, broken dreams. Many grandfathers come from generations that valued silence over vulnerability. They endured pain quietly, believing it was their duty to bear burdens without complaint. Yet those unspoken wounds often ripple forward. They may appear as fears in you, as unexplainable struggles, as invisible weights you carry without knowing their source. His warning is urgent because he does not want you to carry what he carried. He wants you to name it, face it, and release it. For example, if financial instability haunted your family for generations, your grandfather may be urging you to break the cycle by becoming more disciplined, more aware, more intentional with money. If broken marriages or betrayals were common, he may be warning you to choose partners with greater discernment and to heal your own wounds before passing them on. If silence and avoidance were family habits, his message may be pushing you to speak, to open, to refuse to let secrets corrode the foundation of your future. Sagittarius, your sign is ruled by Jupiter, the planet of expansion, wisdom, and destiny. This means your soul carries an energy uniquely suited for breaking generational curses. You are the truth seeker. Where others remain blind to patterns, you notice them. Where others accept limits, you question them. Where others repeat history, you rebel. Your grandfather's urgent warning is a reminder of this role. You are not meant to be swallowed by the old cycles. You are meant to end them. Let us reflect on a real-world story. A man named Elijah grew up in a family where addiction ran deep. Grandparents, parents, uncles. When Elijah's own life began spiraling into the same darkness, he had a dream of his late grandfather. In the dream, his grandfather said, "It stops with you." Those words shook Elijah awake. He entered recovery, healed, and eventually became a counselor for others. Later, he realized his grandfather himself had struggled in silence, and that the dream was his way of giving Elijah the strength he never found in life. Sagittarius, your grandfather's warning may carry the same energy. It stops with you. But breaking cycles is not easy. It requires courage to see the truth, wisdom to choose differently, and perseverance to stay the course when temptation pulls you back toward the familiar. Your grandfather's love is in the warning. He sees the challenges ahead, and he urges you to stay alert, to stay strong, and to lean on both spiritual and earthly support systems. This might mean therapy, trusted mentors, community, or spiritual practices that anchor you when old patterns try to re-emerge. There is also a message here about forgiveness. Sometimes ancestral cycles are not just patterns but wounds we hold against those who came before us. Perhaps your grandfather made mistakes, hurt others, or carried flaws that affected your family. His warning includes this truth. Holding on to resentment only strengthens the cycle. To break free, you must forgive, not to excuse the past, but to release its power over you. Forgiveness opens the gate to healing, both for you and for those who will come after you. Sagittarius, this is bigger than you. Your choices now ripple outward. Your children, your younger siblings, your community. They all benefit when you choose healing over repetition. This is why your grandfather speaks so urgently. He sees that your crossroads is not just about your destiny, but about the legacy of your entire line. He knows that if you rise, generations after you will rise as well. If you fall asleep to the patterns, they will remain unbroken. Practically, how do you respond to this warning? Begin by naming the cycles. Write down what you have noticed in your family. Repeated struggles, repeated stories, repeated heartbreaks. Then ask yourself, what role am I playing in continuing this? What role can I play in breaking it? Awareness is the first step. Next, create new rituals. If silence was the cycle, create a ritual of open conversation in your home. If fear was the cycle, create rituals of courage, speaking affirmations, taking small risks. If neglect was the cycle, create rituals of presence. Meals shared without distraction. Moments of gratitude spoken aloud. Small actions become great shifts when repeated over time. Your grandfather's urgent warning is also about time. The longer cycles go unchallenged, the deeper they root. He speaks now because the moment is ripe for change. Do not delay. The crossroads before you is not only personal, it is generational. Step into it with awareness, courage, and the fire of your Sagittarian spirit. Remember this, your grandfather's voice is not just warning, it is blessing. He believes in you. He trusts you. He calls you to rise because he knows you can. He could not end the cycles in his time, but he knows you are the one chosen to finish what he began. His love, his wisdom, his strength flows through you, urging you onward. So Sagittarius, hear him well. The cycles of family are powerful, but so are you. You carry the fire of truth, the bow of the archer, the vision of horizons unimagined. With his warning in your heart and his blessing at your back, you can break what has bound generations and build what will bless generations to come. Gate 3: The shadow of choices and the cost of ignoring the signs. Sagittarius, your grandfather's warning is urgent not only because of ancestral cycles, but also because of the choices you stand to make right now. Life is built from choices, some small, some monumental, and often we underestimate the ripple they create. A single decision can redirect the course of your destiny. This is why your grandfather speaks with such insistence. He sees the crossroads before you, and he knows the cost of ignoring the signs. Sagittarius, your fiery nature means you often leap before looking. You chase horizons with enthusiasm, trusting that somehow things will work out. And often they do because your optimism carries you further than fear ever could. But in moments like this, when the stakes are higher than you realize, blind leaps could carry consequences not only for you, but for those connected to your life. Your grandfather's warning is to slow down, to pause before saying yes, before committing, before choosing paths that look shiny on the surface but hide thorns underneath. Think of the sailor who sees storm clouds but decides to push forward anyway, believing the winds will favor him. At first the journey seems fine, but as the storm grows, the cost of ignoring the signs becomes clear. Many of us live like that sailor, rushing ahead despite the whispers of intuition or the warnings of loved ones. Your grandfather's message is that you cannot afford that now. The signs are real, and to dismiss them would invite unnecessary hardship. This is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to empower you. Warnings from the other side are acts of love, not of doom. They exist so you can act differently, so you can choose paths aligned with your higher self rather than stumbling into traps. Your grandfather's spirit urges you to sharpen your discernment. Who are you listening to? Whose advice shapes your choices? Are you guided by clarity? Or are you swayed by pressure, fear of missing out, or the promises of people whose motives are questionable? History shows us the cost of ignoring signs. Nations that turned a blind eye to warnings often fell into wars they could have prevented. Leaders who dismissed counsel often faced downfalls that reshaped history. On a personal level, countless people have shared stories of regret. I knew something felt wrong, but I ignored it. Sagittarius, you are at risk of repeating that same refrain if you allow impulsiveness to override wisdom. Your grandfather speaks to prevent you from joining that chorus of regret. One real-life example illustrates this. A woman named Caroline once felt drawn into a business partnership. Everyone praised the opportunity, but her intuition whispered unease. Still, she ignored it, trusting the enthusiasm of others. Months later, the deal collapsed, leaving her in financial ruin. Afterward, she recalled dreams of her late grandfather warning her. Not every open door is safe to walk through. She realized too late that the warning had been real. Sagittarius, your grandfather's voice carries that same urgency. He does not want hindsight to become your teacher when foresight could protect you now. There is also a shadow within your own choices that he calls you to face. Avoidance. Sagittarius, your freedom-loving nature sometimes tempts you to escape when things feel heavy. Instead of facing uncomfortable truths, you may distract yourself with travel, entertainment, or even busyness. But avoidance never erases consequences, it only delays them. Your grandfather's warning is, do not run. What you avoid today will grow larger tomorrow. Confront it now while it is manageable. Whether it is a strained relationship, a financial decision, or an inner truth you have been silencing, his message is to face it head-on. But let us also remember, warnings are not only about danger, they are also about opportunity. By heeding the signs, you unlock blessings that remain hidden to those who ignore them. Your grandfather's message carries this hope. If you pause, listen, and act wisely, you will not only avoid hardship, you will step into breakthroughs that are waiting on the other side of discipline and discernment. The universe is aligning opportunities for you, Sagittarius, but only if you move with awareness. Spiritually, this is about trust. Do you trust your intuition? Do you trust the whispers that come in dreams, the sudden feelings that rise in your gut? Your grandfather speaks through these channels. He may not appear before you in physical form, but his presence is near when your heart quickens without explanation, when a sudden thought interrupts your mind, when a symbol like a bird, a number, or a song seems to follow you. These are not random. They are his way of saying, pay attention. So how do you apply this practically? First, slow down. Create space before making decisions. Write them down, pray over them, sit in stillness until clarity comes. Second, test the fruits. Ask, will this choice bring peace, or will it bring chaos? The spirit of your grandfather will never lead you toward chaos. Third, trust the discomfort. If something feels wrong, even if everyone else approves, listen to that inner nudge. That discomfort is often the voice of protection. Sagittarius, the cost of ignoring the signs is steep, but the reward of listening is immeasurable. Imagine yourself months from now looking back at this season. Will you remember it as the time you stumbled into unnecessary pain, or as the time you heeded the warning and rose into a higher destiny? That choice is yours. Your grandfather's love is fierce in this moment. He knows how easy it is for you to rush ahead, to laugh off the seriousness of things, to assume that your fire will carry you through anything. But even fire needs guidance or it burns out of control. His urgent message is simple. Do not ignore the signs. They are not chains to restrict you. They are lanterns to light your path. So pause, Sagittarius. Listen. The crossroads before you is sacred. And with your grandfather's voice in your heart, you will choose not only for yourself, but for the generations that follow. Gate for the path of destiny and the legacy you carry. Sagittarius, your grandfather's urgent warning is not only about avoiding danger or breaking cycles. It is about stepping fully into your destiny. Every soul is born with a purpose, a path written in the stars yet shaped by choices on earth. Your grandfather, from his place in heaven, sees the larger map of your life. He sees where detours could cost you time, where distractions could rob you of peace, and where courage could open doors to miracles. His voice comes now because the moment is ripe. You are standing before destiny's gate, and the way you walk through it will define the legacy you leave behind. Destiny is not a distant promise. It is the thread woven through every decision, every relationship, every act of courage. But Sagittarius, your nature is restless. You long for freedom and exploration, often forgetting that freedom without direction can scatter your energy. Your grandfather's message is clear. Destiny is not found in endless wandering. It is found when your fire is guided by purpose. The archer within you must aim. Without aim, your arrows fall to the ground. With aim, they pierce the target of your calling. What is that calling? For Sagittarius, it is truth. You were born to seek it, speak it, and live it. Yet truth is not always comfortable. Sometimes it isolates you. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. Your grandfather warns that the days ahead will test your commitment to truth. You may be tempted to remain silent to avoid conflict, or to compromise your integrity for acceptance. But he insists, do not betray your truth. To do so would dim the very light you came here to carry. Consider history. Great leaders often stood at crossroads where compromise would have been easier. Martin Luther King Jr. faced jail, threats, and betrayal, yet his commitment to truth shaped generations. Malala Yousafzai risked her life for the truth of education and became a global symbol of courage. These figures remind us that destiny is rarely achieved through comfort. It is forged in fire. Sagittarius, your grandfather warns that your fire will soon be tested, but he also assures you, you have the strength to endure and the wisdom to prevail. Legacy is another part of his message. Your grandfather knows that every choice you make writes not only your story, but also the story of those who come after you. Children, siblings, nieces, nephews, friends, they all watch how you rise, how you fall, how you recover. Your courage becomes their inheritance. Your mistakes, if unhealed, can also become their burden. He warns you because he wants your legacy to be one of light, not one of regret. There is a sacred truth here. Legacy is not about wealth or achievements. It is about energy. What energy will linger in the hearts of others when you are gone? Will it be bitterness or will it be love? Will they remember you as someone who lived distracted, or as someone who walked with purpose? Your grandfather's spirit urges you to live now as though your legacy were being written with every step, because it is. But how do you step into destiny practically? First, clarify your values. What matters most to you? Is it love, freedom, justice, creativity? Write these down and let them guide your choices. Your grandfather warns that without clarity, you will drift. Second, align your actions. It is not enough to know what you value, you must live it. If you value honesty, let your words and actions reflect it, even when it costs you. If you value love, express it daily, not just in grand gestures. Third, surrender the outcome. Destiny unfolds when we commit to the path, not when we control every detail. Trust that the universe, with your grandfather's guidance, will lead you where you need to go. Your grandfather also reminds you that destiny is not a solo journey. You carry the wisdom of those before you and the hopes of those after you. You are part of a lineage. When you rise, you lift your entire line. When you stumble, they stumble with you. This is why his voice is urgent, because he knows your choices echo far beyond yourself. Sagittarius, the fire within you was never meant to be ordinary. You were born to be a torchbearer, to illuminate paths for others, to reveal truths that heal and liberate. But torches can be dangerous if left untended. They can burn just as easily as they can guide. Your grandfather's warning is to tend your fire. Keep it fueled by wisdom, not pride. Aim your arrows with purpose, not impulse. Walk your path with clarity, not distraction. And here lies the blessing hidden in his warning. You are not alone. Even when you feel isolated, your grandfather's spirit walks beside you. He cannot choose for you, but he can guide. He cannot live for you, but he can strengthen you. Every time you pause to listen, you honor not only him but also the entire line of ancestors who paved the way for your existence. So Sagittarius, hear this final truth. Destiny is not waiting for you to become perfect. It is waiting for you to become present. Your grandfather's warning is not a condemnation. It is a call to awaken, to choose wisely, to live fully. The bombshells may come, the storms may shake, but as long as you walk aligned with truth and guided by love, you will fulfill the destiny written for you since before you were born. And in doing so, you will carry your grandfather's legacy forward, turning his urgent warning into your greatest strength. Carrying the warning, living the legacy. Sagittarius, your grandfather's voice has carried across the veil not to frighten you, but to awaken you. His urgent warning is a gift, born of love that does not die with the body. He sees the distractions tugging at your spirit, the patterns that threaten to repeat, the choices that could cost you dearly if made without awareness. And because he loves you, he will not remain silent. This is a sacred moment for you. You are not simply navigating your own path. You are shaping the destiny of those who will come after you. Your grandfather's words remind you that you are the bridge between past and future, chosen to break cycles of pain and build cycles of light. His warning is also his blessing, a call to clarity, to purpose, to truth. Take this deeply to heart. Your destiny is not about avoiding storms, but about learning to walk with wisdom through them. You are strong enough to face the shadow of your choices, discerning enough to avoid traps, and radiant enough to carry forward the legacy of resilience your family entrusted to you. Your grandfather believes in your strength, your fire, and your capacity to rise. So honor him by listening. Honor him by slowing down, by choosing wisely, by living in a way that future generations will thank you for. And above all, honor yourself by remembering that the urgent warning is not a burden. It is a lantern. It lights your path, guiding you toward the horizons you were always meant to reach. If these words resonate with you, share them with those who need light. Like this message and subscribe so we can continue walking this journey together. You are not alone. Your ancestors, the stars, and the universe itself walk with you.